All right, so some of you guys might know this, some of you guys might not, but what I do full-time outside of social media is I manage business strategy for tech companies. And I know everybody's freaking out about TikTok. I thought it'd be helpful for me to just come on here and explain why this ban is happening, what were some of the events that led up to this, and what I think is going to happen next based on the information I have and just my informed opinion. So TikTok was shut down today. They voluntarily shut down their services in response to a law that was passed in April of 2024 called the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Control Applications. I hate these names. They get no points of creativity. Basically, the law required TikTok to either sell itself to a U.S. company or be forced to shut down, making it illegal for them to operate in the country or any U.S.-based company to provide them with valuable networking services, cloud computing, all that stuff. The law passed 352 to 65 in the Republican-controlled House and then passed 79 to 18 in the Democratically controlled Senate, meaning that everyone in government basically wanted this thing to pass and go through. But let's take a step back. Why did they decide to do this at all? TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance. If you haven't realized it, now also owns CapCut. They are a private Chinese-based tech company that was last valued at about $300 billion. And for perspective, Meta, which is the largest social media company here in the US, is valued at about $1.5 trillion. So Meta is much larger and more powerful than TikTok. Keep that in mind. So you might hear politicians say that TikTok is owned by the Chinese government. That's just technically not true, but it is true that any company that operates at any scale within China does so with the blessing or with the coordination of the Chinese government because they are still a communist country after all. The whole thing started back in 2019 when TikTok was really starting to pop off, and a group of bipartisan, meaning both Republican and Democratic congressmen, along with their industry lobbyists and experts, determined that it was a security risk to have TikTok, a Chinese-based company, be so prevalent in the US and on devices of government officials and just people at large. The reason they believed this is because there were some very famous incidents back then of China using their hardware and software exports to do malicious things in other countries. One of the most famous examples that you may or may not have heard of is the 5G towers that were being built across the world. Several European countries use cell towers produced by Huawei, a Chinese company, to build out their 5G networks. China actually gave a lot of those Huawei cell towers to poor countries in Africa and Southeast Asia to build networks there as well. But it was found out that China had actually embedded a kill switch into the cellular towers, meaning that at any point in time, if they wanted to, they can just shut down cell services in a country that had these towers. They could also capture communications that were sent on those towers, meaning they can spy on everyone in the country that had these towers installed, right? That's a real thing that actually happened, and as you'd imagine, is not good for national security. So these congressmen and their lobbyists and experts, who I will remind you on the payroll of Snapchat, then Twitter, and of course Meta, went to then President Trump with their concerns. Trump says, yeah, this isn't looking good, bruv. So he signs an executive order in April of 2020 that required TikTok to either sell itself to a U.S. company or be forced to shut down. TikTok sued the Trump administration, saying that it's executive overreach. They don't have constitutional authority to do this based on any existing law, and they won the case. So the executive order that Trump put in place is not enforced. TikTok was safe for now, but obviously that wasn't the end of the story. The following year, in August of 2020, Trump signed another executive order that would do the same thing, but him and his team thought that given the changes in language, they might be able to have this one hold up in court. So TikTok sued to block this one as well, obviously, but in the meantime, they agreed to two compromises. One, that all data collected on U.S. users would be stored in the data servers of a company that the Trump administration would select. And then second, that they would allow their code base to be inspected by not only journalists, but also industry experts who work for the government. And on that second point, that was a huge deal for TikTok to decide to open up their algorithm to the government to basically see it. Because, as we all know, TikTok's algorithm is what makes the app so special. That's why they're so successful. They were the first company to utilize a discovery engine which can feed you content regardless of whether you have an existing connection with the creator of that content. Meaning they gave you content based on what you like, not based on who you follow, which is how every other social media company up until that point did it. They use a social graph essentially to determine what's important to you. TikTok used other data signals to find out what's important to you. So then everyone gets to see TikTok's algorithm. The first point, TikTok agreed to have all of their data from US users stored on the servers of Oracle. Oracle is owned by a billionaire named Larry Ellison, who is a big-time Republican donor and a longtime friend of Donald Trump. and he was given the contract to basically provide cloud computing services to TikTok, which was a huge deal because Microsoft, Google, all these companies wanted that contract, but Oracle got it because they were better connected with the Trump administration. Okay, so all this happens in late 2020, and in that November, Donald Trump loses the election to Joe Biden. So the following year, Joe Biden takes office. An important point on what Trump did, Trump tried to ban TikTok using executive orders, which any future president does not have the requirement to maintain them. So Joe Biden takes office and he rescinds both executive orders that Trump signed, the one in 2019 and the one in 2020. So those things were no longer put into place. So TikTok's lawsuit against him was dropped. But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden did not agree with Trump on wanting to ban TikTok. Him and his team did, but they just wanted to find a bulletproof legal way to do this through law so that there was no possibility for TikTok to win in court. So they started the process of, bringing the CEO of TikTok, the guy from Singapore who you've seen, in front of Congress to get questions from him. They do the whole thing, whatever. And then it brings us here to April 2024, when the law gets passed requiring TikTok to sell itself to a U.S. company within 270 days or be forced to shut down. Now that day has come. That is January 19th. That's what just happened. Now the interesting thing is that TikTok in their message specifically name drop Donald Trump. And they're doing that to box him into a decision that allows them to continue working. Because they're setting it up for Donald Trump to either be the hero if he decides to save TikTok and not follow through with the ban, which is what they want, or to be the villain if he decides to enforce the ban, which of course, you're coming into office as president, you don't want to be viewed as killing something that people love, right? So it's a very clear decision for Donald Trump to go ahead to restore TikTok, to get the credit and praise for saving it. But there is one more complication I wanted to bring up. One important point about the 2020 process when TikTok was looking to sell itself or have its data stored by a U.S. company. One company that was not considered at any point during that process was Meta. For a few reasons. One, because Meta is the biggest social media company, so it's 100% a violation of antitrust to have them also own TikTok. But secondly, nobody at that time liked Meta. Democrats did not like Meta because they blamed them for Hillary Clinton losing to Trump in 2016. Republicans did not like Meta because they thought that they unduly censored Republican voices. And of course, just being liberal in general. So nobody liked Meta. Nobody considered them. Nobody wanted to have them on their side, right? If you haven't noticed, over the past few months, Mark Zuckerberg has been twerking his life away towards Trump and Republicans after Trump won the election. He never said shit about it before, but the moment that Trump won, this guy was just on his dick. The reason why he's doing it is because I believe he wants to have preferential treatment to buy TikTok in the event that they are forced to sell. And he wants assurances from the Trump administration that Donald Trump's FTC chair or DOJ will not sue Facebook or Meta for antitrust if they were to go ahead and do that. You guys saw that he made a big announcement on Fox News about they're going to stop fact-checking because they care about free speech. They don't like censorship. Okay. He went on Joe Rogan's show wearing a giant chain and a baggy t-shirt talking about, I can do whatever I want. He's such a big, tough guy. He's doing that to try and curry favor with the Trump administration because he wants to be first in line to buy this company. That's my opinion. Interesting couple days or weeks ahead. I'm pretty sure that it'll be back in our phones and our hearts within the next week, but just thought that I would give that background so you guys could know and understand. So that's it for me. Love you guys. Peace.